we're very fortunate today, and we really appreciate that Julie was willing to do our inaugural student webinar, because she has a very excellent and diverse background that we think will be very useful for students in terms of her presentation, to let you know that she has a lot of experience that can be very useful to you. She has her I assume that's Master's of Engineering from McMaster University, and she's a professional engineer with more than 15 years of process engineering experience in a variety of industries. She's currently the Director of Laboratory Services for Green Center Canada, and she is responsible for the operation of the laboratory, and which includes health and safety for the 12 scientists who work there. And she also does the hiring, which is why we invited her to come today and talk about and tell students what she looks for when she is hiring somebody for her laboratory, and to talk about different careers in chemistry and how to get hired. So thank you so much, Julie McLachlan. And I'm going to let you take it away. And remember, everyone, that we will post this. We will have this posted hopefully in the very near future, and the PDF will be available at the student website at the Michigan Green Chemistry website. Julie, take it away.
All right, thanks so much for having me. So today I want to talk about opportunities for a career in chemistry and how to get hired, and really when concentrating on getting hired as a chemist. So there's lots of websites out there, lots of great information on how to do a good interview, but I've really pushed this towards chemists and what can we do. So the agenda today, I'm going to talk a little bit about my background, just to give you a feel for the different jobs I've had. And then we're going to talk about the criteria for a career, and not just a job. I think it's more important that you look at what you want to do for the rest of your life as a career, and something that you need to direct and figure out. So we're going to talk about a little bit about that. And then we're going to talk about what are the different opportunities for chemists. And I've said chemists/chemical engineers because I'm assuming people who are interested in green chemistry are both. So what kind of attributes what are the things you like? What do you like to do? What kind of person are you? And what would be a good job for you? And then we'll talk a little bit about interviewing tips, but clearly just for chemists, try and concentrate on that, because you could speak a whole hour on how to do a good interview. And then, because I really wanted to leave time for questions, because I think it's very important that you have the opportunity to ask questions. So this next slide here, I'm embarrassing myself, giving you a picture of myself back from the early 90s. I graduated from Queen's University with a degree in engineering chemistry. Engineering chemistry is a pretty unique program. It's only offered in North America at Queen's. And so I have an honors chemistry degree, and I have an honors degree in chemical engineering. So I could do either type of job. And the reason I have this picture up here is from a summer job when I worked at Dow Chemical. So I was quite fortunate. I had 3 good summer jobs in chemical engineering kind of manufacturing environments. And I found this picture, and it makes me laugh, because with my job today, there's a lot of posing, and there's a lot of planned pictures for different publications. And chemists are always getting their picture taken with a beaker. The fact that we do green chemistry, we often put a little bit of green food coloring into the water in a beaker or a flask, and we're showing your chemistry. This picture's from the propaganda magazine for Dow Chemical when I worked there the summer after 3rd year, and chemical engineers pose with pumps and pipes and that kind of thing. So that's what that picture is meant to signify. So summer jobs, had great summer jobs. My first job out of university is a process engineer in New Orleans, Louisiana. That picture is a real picture. That is the plant. The plant had a beautiful plantation home, which used to be the main offices. And then you can see the stacks for the boiler house, the filter house, all that kind of stuff. So I learned all about sugar from one end to the other, and I worked there for about 2 years. Then I moved back to Canada and worked for Owens Corning. Owens Corning is a glass fibers plant where they make the roving and chop strand mat and things for use in fiberglass boats, shower stalls, that kind of thing. I'm not going to talk great detail about all these jobs, but please feel free to ask questions about particular jobs or companies, that kind of thing. Personal reasons, went back to graduate school, wanted to extend my career. I did my master's in chemical engineering at McMaster University. I was there just under 2 years. Did my thesis in water-soluble polymers, so polymers that are used as flocculants and other things. And that tied right into my next job. So when I graduated from graduate school, I took a job with Nelco Chemical Company, and I was in technical service and sales. This was a job in Eastern Ontario, so when you're dealing with a lot of different companies. So I had customers of DuPont, cheese plants, paper mills, and a lot of the things in between. I did water treatment, so things for boilers, water treatment for boilers, cooling towers, and waste treatment plants was my main focus. So I have a lot of experience in that, and we can talk a little bit about technical service and sales afterwards as well, because that's a really good field for chemists. I then moved to DuPont, and I was an environmental engineer. Again, in that job, a chemist could easily have done that job. It's looking at the right to operate for the plant, the manufacturing facility where they make nylon 6/6 for carpets and airbags. Environmental engineer does environmental calculations of emissions. They do all the corporate reporting. Certificate of approvals is the term in Ontario, but you know, your rights to operate and your everything to do with the environment. I then moved to be a process engineer. I didn't really change companies. The company itself changed. DuPont divested the nylon business into Invista. And when I came back from maternity leave with my second child, I switched jobs, and there was a gap in the process engineering department. And with my background, I was able to step in there and be responsible for 3 polymer lines. So experience in a manufacturing plant and how things work. Then the piece de resistance, where I ended up now, I took a job with Green Centre Canada. So my job here is I'm Director of Laboratory Services. And like Lynn kindly said, I'm responsible for the facility and the lab. So I'm responsible for the lab and the 10 scientists who work there, plus the co-op students, plus contract workers and all the rest. So the picture there is just one of the lab benches and a fume hood in our lab. I've done a lot of engineering work, but now this is a chemistry facility. We hire chemists, and we're doing chemistry. And hopefully some of you have heard of Green Centre. We want to change the world. We're working on green chemistry ideas, getting ideas from universities into industry. So we work with industry, and we're starting up new companies and getting ideas out. We're really bridging that gap between the academic world and the industry world. Again, I could talk an hour about what Green Centre's done, but that has been done. I know my boss, Rui, has spoken on Green Centre and the model, but please feel free to ask questions specifically about Green Centre if you're interested. But I want to get to the job search part, because that's what you guys are really interested in today. So as I mentioned, I want you to think about a career and what you want to do. One thing I was told is you spend more awake time at work than you do with your family. So you really need to think about that job and what it is you do, and you have to be happy there because you spend a lot of time at work. Already all of you on this call ideally have a passion for green chemistry and excited, and you don't have to work at a green chemistry commercialization and development lab to do green chemistry. Green chemistry is everywhere. And it's very, very valuable, so because you have an understanding of how to change things, how to make things better, and the basic fundamentals of green chemistry is that it needs to be economical and it needs to be done. It needs to be an industry. So those are great skill sets to sell yourself with. What you need to think about is how are you going to apply your technical knowledge to help the company. One thing when I'm looking, I hire master's and PhD level people, and the hard part is when you're doing your master's, you're doing your PhD, you're concentrating so much on one particular field of chemistry. So perhaps you're doing ionic liquids or boron or whatever you're studying, lovely. You've learned a lot, but it's very unlikely you're going to get a job in that field and only do that work for the rest of your life. So you really got to understand what are the skill sets you have and how can you apply that to a company who's looking to hire you. You need to think about what you like to do. Are you a problem solver? Do you like to solve problems and fix things? Or do you really enjoy routine tasks? Very two different thought processes there, and there's a need for both. If you're working in an analytical lab and you're running GCMS samples all day, there's problem solving in there, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of routine work that needs to be done, and there's a lot of people who have a lot of accomplishment and feel really great about getting those samples through, improving your uptime and all the rest. Other people, that would drive them absolutely crazy, and they could never work in an analytical lab. You really got to know what you want and what you want to do for the rest of your life. What sort of environment do you like? Do you want a very structured workplace, or do you like the craziness of a startup company? Two very, very different places. My experience, something at DuPont or any large chemical plant, there's a lot of structure that's very clear. There's chemists in the lab, there's chemists over here, there's QA, there's engineering, reliability engineering, manufacturing, all the rest. Versus a startup, you get to do everything. You flow to the work because there is so much work to do and so few people. So what does that work for you? Is that something that would interest you? You really need to think about that. Just want to emphasize being strong technically is not enough. They are looking for everything. My key is communication skills, being able to talk, being able to explain, being a problem solving, lots of things. So just because you're a great chemist or you had good marks in school is not enough. You need the rest. And you really need to fit your skill set to the job. So if there's a job posting that you're interested in, I expect you to tell me exactly what the characteristics you have that fit to what I'm looking for. So that's important, and we can talk a little bit more about that later. And as I mentioned before, expect to direct your own career. You really need to figure out what you want and how to move within a company or move from job to job to get the work that excites you and you're passionate about so you can move forward in the company or forward in your career and really enjoy what you're doing, because that's the most important part. So I'm now going to go and talk about a bunch of different characteristics and the job. So for people who are creative and curious, they're not happy with the status quo and they really want to find a better way to do something, good team player, good systematic thinker, really thinks about a process or a reaction scheme, anything. They just really understand how systems work. And they have a great ability to develop alternatives, so looking at other ways of doing things. They're not too risk adverse. They're flexible. They're open to looking at multiple ways of doing things, and they get that there's long-term results, that horizon there, but they also understand the need to meet short-term. So you really, there's a lot of workload there. So if these characteristics describe you, a good opportunity is a product developer. So what is product developer? That's who I hire. I hire a product development scientist. I'm hired here at Green Center. We have the 10 scientists who get things into industry. So we may have a really great idea that comes from a university, but it's only been made in a test tube or an NMR tube. We figure out how to make that process at scale. So we may start out 50 grams, move up to a liter, and then we're going to work with other companies and understand that we could make this at a ton level. Simple things like knowing if the chemical is available in a rail car, how to change the synthesis for industry, being really flexible and working on a lot of things. Those jobs are here. Those jobs are at all chemical industries and a lot of other places in between. But developing product is a fun job. What other jobs are they? So let's say you're competitive. You like being measured and having a goal. You like negotiating with others. You're good at building a wide network of contacts, and you like working with people and as part of a team. If you're a really good listener and you like to be rewarded for results, and you can understand the financial impact of a technology, and that part is critical, sales, technical service would be great for you. I've done this. I've worked in sales technical service for 5 years. If you watch Survivor, The Bachelor, or any of those shows, you see there's a lot of technical sales reps kind of jobs. There's a lot of jobs in sales and technical service for chemists. It is a great opportunity. So you have your pharmaceutical sales reps, you have chemical sales reps, and a lot of things in between. And there's sales reps who just sell chemicals, and then there's technical service reps who sell the chemicals, but really you're selling yourself as an employee as well. So when I worked for Nelco in technical service, I went to plants and made sure they had the amount of chemical they need, the product was working properly, but I helped them with their process. I did training, troubleshooting, all the rest. You're really their chemist or chemical engineer for hire, and you work with them. Very rewarding opportunity to make a lot of money. Very difficult job too, depending on the field. In some cases, what I felt and why I wanted out of sales, because I was having a child and didn't think the workload would work with a child, but also the hard part of sales is it's easy to sell your product and sell yourself, but in a lot of cases you have to fire someone else to get the job. So you could imagine if that's how the interview process works, that you were looking and you're courting a company and say, I'm really interested in working you should fire this person and hire me. That's what sales is to a good extent. So you have to have the backbone for that and figure out how to do things in some cases, not all jobs. But sales, technical service, a lot of opportunities for chemists and chemical engineers. Another opportunity, are you meticulous with getting details correct? Are you interested in learning about leading-edge discoveries? Willing to do long hours at high pay, a lot of opportunity here. You're not scared by paperwork. You really need to be an analytical person and deal with paperwork. You have to be comfortable with deadlines, and I have repeated this on purpose. You need to be meticulous with getting the details correct. If that describes you, an opportunity is a patent agent or a lawyer. And these are jobs that I never thought of myself when I graduated undergrad a long time ago. But a patent agent, very high demand, especially someone who knows chemistry. There's a lot of patent agents out there who are involved in high-tech and computers and other things, but the chemistry is a very interesting field, and there are a lot of patents filed. We ourselves at Green Center have a patent agent firm who works just with us. We have that many patents we're applying for. Very important. And a lawyer. A lawyer with a chemistry background is quite exciting. In my past, when I worked with lawyers in environmental law, so all manufacturers have a lawyer on staff or on retainer who understand the environmental regulations and help you weed through things. And then there's lawyers who help you with your production or your patents and all the rest. So great opportunity. It's a lot more work. Law school or patent agent is clerking with someone, and a lot of testing and a lot of work, but great opportunity, great salaries, and a wide range of work. You can really flow and do the kind of work that excites you. So that's a really neat opportunity as well. So another job, you're interested in a wide range of technologies, but not necessarily getting in depth on each one. You like negotiating. You're good at building a wide network of contacts. You understand both the academic and business culture, and you like working with lawyers. Not everyone likes lawyers. As a university tech transfer agent, and I hadn't really heard of this position when I was an undergrad. I didn't know tech transfer departments existed. Even in graduate school, I didn't really deal with that. So, but there's a lot of really important information discovered at universities that should get licensed and used in industry and bring back money to the prof and to the university. So tech transfer is a really important part of a university, and there's a lot of opportunity because every university has them or should have them, and there's a lot of neat work. So you're really getting involved in a lot of different fields and moving things forward and working with industry. So a lot of neat opportunities there. Another opportunity, are you data-driven? Do you seek better ways to measure what is happening in a process and continuously improve it? The chart shown below would give you sleepless nights until you understood the variations and had corrected them. One thing you may like is quality management. So there's quality management, and then there's also someone working in a QA, QC lab, right? So people, a lot of chemists are necessary to work in the lab of a manufacturing facility or an analytical lab that does results for others and run all those wonderful pieces of equipment you've been using in your labs at school. So QA, QC, quality management, a lot of neat opportunities for chemists there. One of the biggest opportunities, I think, for a bachelor's level chemist is working in a QA, QC lab. Another opportunity, are you interested in the impact of chemistry on the environment, which most of you with a passion for green chemistry ideally have? Are you a systematic thinker, a clear communicator, able to think through the use of chemistry from cradle to cradle? So that's a very particular term, but really thinking about when you make that molecule and the repercussions and how it's used in its entire life, even if it's, and getting it back when it's done. So understanding what happens to that molecule, able to understand the impacts of regulations from multiple perspectives. Then an interesting opportunity is self-safety, health, and environmental management. Often it's more than one job, but in that field, to talk about SHE or EH&S, there's a lot of opportunities for chemists and engineers there. And understanding the health impacts, understanding the safety, even environment, a lot of regulations. You got to be able to understand your regulations and like it, reporting. But there's a great opportunity to really understand a plant too and how things work and make things better for people. So I did environmental engineering for 3 years, really enjoyed it. Would gladly be back in that sort of field, and it's one of the reasons I was hired here at Green Center, because I have that background. So I'm bringing that to a small startup company. We're up to 30 people now, but at the beginning we didn't have all those systems put in place. So EH&S opportunities are quite exciting. And there is other training you can do after the fact. If you look at safety blogs and things now with the recent incidents that have happened in chemistry labs across the U.S. and Canada, there's a huge push for this now at university. There's a lot of job postings I've seen for safety and health and safety kind of people at universities and at industry, because they're realizing they got to have the systems in place and they got to protect people. So neat opportunities there. Another job is, are you competitive? Do you like being measured and having a goal? Do you like negotiating with others? Are you good at building a wide network of contacts, like working with people and as part of a team? Are you a good listener? Do you like to be rewarded for results? Can you understand the financial impact of a technology? You can understand that some of these questions are common to other things, other job opportunities, but if this describes you, especially the competitive and likes to be rewarding, is an entrepreneur. And there is a huge need for entrepreneurs to start up new companies, get processes moving and all the rest. So there's a lot of opportunity there, and for the right person, it's a super exciting job. It's risky because you're on your own, or perhaps you get the right partners, but there's a lot of neat opportunities because, as we've seen with Green Center, there are so many great ideas and things being discovered at universities, and they're not getting put into practice. So that entrepreneurial nature, that if you have that, great opportunity to move things forward. So those are jobs that I thought of that might be interesting for chemists. We can talk about more. Ideally, you have some questions. What I wanted to talk about now is just some interviewing tips on when you get there. You've applied for something, you're thinking about a job, and again, I haven't put every interview tip and all the rest because you can find that everything online. I've kind of thought about this from a chemist's point of view. When you're interviewing, you need to know as much as you can about the company. So what they do, how they do it, why they do it, really also understanding the culture of a company. DuPont is very different than 3M. It's very different than a Domtar paper mill. You really need to understand the culture. And twofold, you want to show you know it, but you also want to find out if that's where you want to work. If that's the kind of place that excites you and will give you the feedback and the attaboys, attagirls that you need. So you need to know as much of as you can, and don't be afraid to have questions ready to find out specific things you want to know if you can't find it online or asking people who work there. A big thing is employers want high-impact people with the knowledge, skills, and work habits to be productive. Easier said than done. What you do is you show this through examples. I'll give you a hint I have. So when I was interviewing for jobs, when I got my job at Green Center, I was interviewing at quite a few companies. I decided I needed to change and wanted something different. And I kind of had a list of different things I have accomplished and had that list. And I didn't have answers to every question because you don't know what's going to ask, but I had this list of things I accomplished that I really wanted to talk about in an interview. But you just don't start rhyming things off. But if they ask for, can you give me an example of when you've done this, or an example of when you were, that kind of thing, and then you have these examples ready to go. I had them written down in front of me in the interview process, so I knew I could almost, maybe didn't have the pen and check them off, but yeah, I covered that, I talked about that. Okay, this question I'm going to try and bring this example in. So you need to have your examples ready. I talk about behavior-based interviewing now, and how you've acted in the past is how they're judging you of how you're going to work in the future. Another skill set is communication. So communication, how you communicate, and including listening. It's critical, and it will differentiate you. When I'm looking at scientists for Green Center, we are very, very, very picky of who we hire. I need phenomenal chemists, but I need chemists who can talk. I need chemists who are comfortable meeting with politicians, chemists who can push back on a commercial director and say, no, I don't think that's the right thing to do, and chemists who are comfortable explaining themselves. So communication skills are the #1 thing I need, because I'm assuming the chemistry is good. And in most companies, that is the case. They really love to see people who can talk, because that allows you to move up in a company. You may not need great communication skills to run a GC in the lab, but if you want to do more than that, if you want to start becoming the lab manager and move up, communication skills are what differentiate you. I really want to see versatility and flexibility. You need to be able to flow to the work and give examples of that and show how you like that. Because there's never really a job anymore where there's a distinct box and you're only going to do that work and that's all you're ever going to do. No, it doesn't exist. Industry, academic world, everywhere, it's moving so fast, things are changing so much that you really need to show that you can flow to the work. The last thing, this should be a no-brainer, but be prepared to talk about your science. So just because you're going to an interview and they don't specifically say, I would like you to give a 20-minute presentation on your, say if you were at a graduate school, or your 4th-year thesis or your overall thesis for master's or PhD, you best be prepared to talk about that. And you need to be able to talk about it on a number of different levels, because you need to know your audience and who you're talking to. So you may want to give a 20-minute, very technical presentation, or you maybe need to talk about it in 30 seconds, a minute or two, to give a high level what you did and why it was important. Again, if you're listening to this and you have a passion for green chemistry, you should understand the importance of why you're doing the work you're doing and why it's exciting. And you should be able to sell that and be excited about it. So if you're not asked to give a presentation, have a presentation on a memory stick in your back pocket just in case. Have printouts of posters you've given at conferences or your 4th-year thesis talk, that kind of thing. Be prepared to talk about your science. So that is all I wanted to talk about there. I really wanted time for questions. So that's the main part of my talk. So hopefully people have some questions. I should have put a slide in, and I didn't. Green Center Canada, we have a very good website. We're also on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter. So on the PDF version that gets posted, I'll make sure there's a slide there with all of that contact information so that you should be able to contact us. If you're looking for work, which I think many of you are on this call for that reason, we're not hiring anyone right now, but when we are looking for chemists or commercial directors or communications people, many different jobs, we post that on our website and also on Facebook. So if you're following us on Facebook, it's a good opportunity to see what we're up to as Green Center Canada and what opportunities exist. So that's it for the formal part of the presentation. I really hope you guys have questions, and I'm happy to answer personal questions. So why you switch jobs, why you do this, how to balance kids and a career, how to balance the spouse and career. Happy to answer any of those questions. So please, Lynn, if you want to start coordinating that, hopefully there are some questions.
Well, we do have one to start off, and I want to thank you for your presentation. Almost makes me want to go apply for a job as a chemist. So the one question is what you just mentioned, actually, which asks, why did you move around so much?
Okay, great. So it's always a choice. So my first job in New Orleans, if I could still be there, I probably should. But at that time, I was married and living in the United States as a Canadian with a Canadian husband who had an engineering degree as well. Couldn't get a job. So he interviewed with companies, and too Canadian, too liberal, too this. It's hard, right? So I quit my first job to move back to Canada so he could work, because you can only have an unemployed spouse for so long, and it's not a good thing. So I've quit jobs for my spouse. I've quit jobs. The next job I had, and this is an important characteristic, I got a job at Owens Corning, and I took a job. I didn't think really about the career and what I wanted. We had quit a job. I wasn't working. We needed to work. I could only live in my mother's house as an adult for a very short time. So kind of took the first job that was available and really did not excite me. There wasn't a huge passion for it, and didn't see a future with the company. And one thing, it's wonderful if you can get a job and work at one company for the rest of your life, but it's very, very rare nowadays. When I got my job at Owens Corning, they were the propaganda, which is probably not the most polite way to say it, but what they were pushing is Owens Corning does not guarantee you a job. They were stating that in videos and information because they had so much change and flux happening in the industry, and the thought process that once you got a job at a big company, you were there for life, has changed. It really does not exist anymore. If you're talking to friends who have jobs, you'll find that they have moved around a lot. Then I went back to grad school because I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted, and to be honest, I picked a McMaster because my husband worked in Hamilton at the time. I had gotten a job in Guelph, Ontario, which means nothing to a lot of you, but if you look at a map and then we did the compass and put, okay, what's an hour drive from here, and that's where Rob looked for work, because then you can fit, two people working kind of thing. So went back to grad school to kind of figure out what I wanted to do, and because I liked school, I was interested in it. And then when I got my first job out of graduate school, so I enjoyed graduate school, but it was very clear I did not want to do a PhD and stay there any longer than necessary. I really like working and making things and accomplishing and moving that stuff forward. So when I moved to Nelco, really happy, loved the job. So sales and service, the concept of you're not in one place every day, so that's a huge big perk with sales and technical service. You're not going to the same place every day. You're going to different industries. You're going to different places, and sometimes sales you're traveling all across the United States. Sometimes you're in just a particular area. Really depends on what you're selling and what's happening. But there's a lot of, the big thing there is change and a lot of different variety. I loved Nelco, and it was a lot of fun, but honestly, I had my first child. I had my son, and I didn't think I could do that job and be a mom. Long days, a lot of travel, and I just I didn't want to give up that part of my family. And I don't know if my marriage could have handled that, right? When you have two spouses working, it's very difficult to say, a lot of times someone doesn't work to try and balance the other career, but in our case, we both wanted to work, and so we balanced it, so you have to pick the job accordingly. So that's why I quit Winelco and got a job at one of my customers, and that's another key point is networking and be open to all the contacts you have and let them know you're interested in work. When I told them I was interested in leaving Nelco and would they have any opportunities for me, they're like, we might, please let me know. So it got to the point where I had several other job offers, and I had to say, okay, I'm accepting a job offer next week if you can't come through with this. And they really wanted me, and they came through with a job offer, which made life much easier for me because I stayed in the same city. Husband didn't have to change his job, that kind of thing. So networking and all the rest is great. The big thing why I changed, came to Green Center, personal reasons. I was about to turn 40 and kind of saying, do I want to do this particular job for another 20 years? And so kind of thought about I wanted something different, and found the opportunity here at Green Center, and phenomenally happy. It's a very exciting company to work for. It is a startup. We're small. There's a lot of workload, a lot of exciting work, but you can accomplish a lot. So I am extremely happy here and having a lot of fun. I had never before managed people, and now I have a team of 12 people. And it's very different, but it's also a lot of fun. So that was a very long answer, but hopefully that was valuable.
That was great. So the next question is, in your opinion, to be hired by the end of 2012 in a chemistry-related field, does one have a better chance with an undergraduate degree or a master's degree?
Oh, great question. It goes back to, it's more importantly what kind of job you want. Because if you get your master's, you can be overqualified for a lot of things. But it allows you to learn more and go forward. I'm trying to think of the latest job opportunities I've seen. It depends on what you want to concentrate in. It's a hard answer. Don't go to school just because there's no jobs, so therefore that's what you think you have to do, because there still are jobs out there. And if you look at the economy, a lot of times there's a lot more master's students than that really are necessary because people don't know what to do, so they go back to school. So don't go back to school unless you really want to. But there's a lot of bachelor's level jobs out there. Technical sales service, QA/QC, analytical labs, and if that excites you, then go for those. If you want the product development scientist kind of role at a company like Green Center or DuPont or Stepan or many other companies, that's when you need the master's.
I have a bunch of other questions that are, we have a lot of questions, and I have
Great.
some that are kind of the same, so I'm going to ask you two questions at once. The first one is, if I mention my exposure to green chemistry, am I going to be a better candidate? And related to that, somebody asked, which would be the best way to sell oneself with the green chemistry knowledge? In the past, we had graduates who mentioned green chemistry knowledge, and the answer of the interview was, what is that?
Great question. So I think it's hugely valuable to sell your exposure to green chemistry, and the best way to sell it is talking about it. So honestly, industry is interested in green chemistry, but not necessarily for the same reasons you are. So the big thing they want is atom economy, because you're making things smarter, so it's probably cheaper. Designing safer chemicals, safer solvents, that's all very important in industry. And the other thing is less waste, right? So the fact that you're making something cheaper. So I've heard talks by both John Warner and Paul Anastas, and green chemistry was chosen. Green is environmental, but green is also the color of the U.S. dollar. And let's be honest, that is what excites companies, and that is what gets you hired, is you understand the economics and the value to what you bring. And green chemistry is good for industry, and it will be good. And so they may not even know about it, and the fact that you do know about it and can talk about it, safer, cheaper, that gets people excited.
That's great. So I have another question that says, when applying online to job sites such as Monster.com, what do you look for on a resume?
Oh, interesting. So unfortunately, a lot of those online things, they're looking for keywords. I spend more time than I should on resumes, but I think it's valuable to, I really want to know the people and get the right people. It's buzzwords. The buzzwords change over time, so I'm not sure what's important right now. It really depends on the job. I've heard hints that they look at resumes, they're looking for key things. The most important thing you can do is, if you're applying for a particular posting, and I do this when I post, and I say I'm looking for these 4 things. Make sure your resume says those 4 things related to your background, or try and push it in there, but your resume or your cover letter should really put a clear link to what the job is asking for. And that's the best way you'll get looked at, because a lot of times you get HR people, admins, that kind of stuff, who know nothing about chemistry or nothing about the industry, but they're the ones who are judging the resumes. So they're just looking for the 4 things that they were asked to. And so they may not understand that inorganic chemistry is the same as organometallic to a certain extent. I'm not trying to be rude for those who are experts, but the learnings are fine. So sometimes don't be so specific that it excludes you, and really look at the job posting to match the keywords.
That's great. I think that's great advice. So the next question is very related to that, and you may have answered some of it already, but I'm still going to pose it. It says, nowadays, are companies looking more for bachelor's, master's, or doctorate candidates, or just any science background to work jobs? And I think you talked about that in when you were talking about whether a master's is better, or but so, and here's a related question, I think, that I want to trouble. Okay, well, sorry, I'm having a little trouble getting this. It says, it seems many jobs online are temporary jobs, and the representatives recruiting may not know about chemistry in every case. Oh, I see. It says companies are looking for more, our companies looking for more bachelor's, master's, or doctorate candidates, or just any science background to work jobs.
Okay, so to answer that, it depends on the job, and it depends what you want. There are companies out there who will say, I only need a bachelor's for this, but if I can hire a master's level student, that's better. And they hire that. The trick is, if the job does not challenge or excite the person enough, you don't go do your master's unless you have a passion for learning and want to move forward and solve a problem, that kind of thing. And so you go get your master's degree or even a PhD and spend a phenomenal amount of time, and then you go take a QA to QC job somewhere where you're running a GC. you're not going to be excited. You're not going to be interested, and it's not going to be fun. So some companies take advantage of it. Some companies, me in particular, if I'm hiring a master's level candidate and we have product development scientists and I'm willing to pay at a level of that, I don't even interview PhDs. And it's awful because the last postings we had, more than 50 people apply for one job. And there were a lot of people with their PhD, and I was asked for a master's. I only want a master's because I'm only going to pay for the master's, and that's what I expect. But there's PhDs who, of course, who would take that job and hope they can move up in salary. But if that's what your budget is, that's what your budget is. We're not-for-profit, so we don't have a lot of flexibility. So again, it depends on the company. I would not suggest doing your master's or your PhD just to get a job. You have to do graduate school because you have a passion for it and you're interested in it and doing that learning. You have to be clear in today's economy that even if you want to be a prof, that there's a good chance you're not going to be able to because universities are not hiring that many professors. But if you're phenomenal, they'll find a space for you. And the question with regards to temporary jobs, don't be scared of a temp job. If you are good, they'll find a way to make you full-time. And even right now, we have one person who's here on a temporary contract, two people on a temporary contract basis, because I don't want to be the company that hires someone and fires with the time. We had a short-term need. We're filling it. They're the first people on my list who I would hire because a temporary job is just like a very long interview, right? You get to know the company, you get to know the people, and it's a great opportunity for you. So don't be afraid of a temporary job. If you're going to choose a temp job over a full-time job, you got to understand the situation that they might not be able to keep you. But any experience you get builds your resume, builds your ability to answer questions better and show more examples. So don't be afraid of temp jobs. The economy right now sucks, still has for a very long time, and a lot of companies are too nervous to bring someone on full-time with all the benefits and the overhead that comes with it. So they do the temporary job, but ideally if you're good, you can sell yourself to get the full-time.
So we have about 5 more minutes, and I have 3 more questions.
Okay,
so
perfect.
Let's do the best we can, and if not, we can't get to all of them, maybe you would be so kind as to answer them in writing, and we can post them on our website.
Sure, not a problem.
The next question is, in the entrepreneuring area, how would you go about overcoming startup hurdles, such as getting funding, competent scientists, etc.?
Oh, yeah, that's a whole seminar on itself. The big thing with entrepreneur is, especially if you're coming at it as the chemist, is find the business people. I don't know if you have ever even gone over to the MBA school or the business school or talked to the economics and the commerce grads. It's find the right people to work with and start it that way. And work with, I know in Canada there's lots of different agencies to help companies move forward. I know those same things exist in the States and even in universities. So go get the resources. Get the help, that's typically free, so that's a good thing. And get the mentors and the other people to help you is the quick and dirty answer to that question.
Great. This is a very practical question. What is the starting wage salary for students who just graduated with a bachelor's, not a master's degree?
I don't have a good answer for that. It really depends on the industry, because you can get, if you work at an oil company, you can make more than a PhD chemist. Like if you work at an oil company in a QA/QC, you might make more than a PhD does here at Green Center. So salary is very, very subjective. The amount of education and the amount of experience does not tie to your salary. It's the workplace and the type of work. So as a chemist, you could be working shift work somewhere in a lab, so you're working from 6 at night to 6 in the morning, and you get paid because of that. So salary, I can't give you a number for salary.
Okay, fair enough. Here's our last question. So let's see if we can squeeze this in. This is from a student from South Korea. He says, he or she, I'm sorry, I've studied chemical engineering at Korea and I'm taking green chemistry in the U.S. My question is that, is 4 years engineering program and undergraduate enough for working in industry? Because I have great interest in green chemistry, so that is why I want to go to graduate school to learn about green polymers. Simply say, to get hired in chemical company as an engineer, is it okay to get a bachelor's for engineering and a master's degree for green chemistry? I believe combining both concepts, engineering and green chemistry, would be great. I would like you to give me advice. Thank you.
No problem. The one benefit about an engineering degree is you can get a job after. Not that many people go get a master's and a PhD in engineering. It's not nearly as common as chemistry. The jobs out there for starting engineers are for a bachelor's. The trick is the type of work you want to do. So that's the type of engineer where I was, running a sugar plant, making nylon 6,6 polymer from the science and the chemistry, which is from the 70s. If you're interested in green chemistry and new polymers and all the rest, your practical background with your engineering degree and then doing the green chemistry and concentrating on polymers will get you work. I have 2 of those types of people here because material science is critical part of green chemistry, and it's what manufacturing and industry needs. And if you want to create, the trick is if you want to work R&D at DuPont, many different companies that do polymers, right? You can think of BASF, Bayer, and all the rest, Nova. They probably want that master's degree in green chemistry would be a great fit, and I think you'd have a lot of opportunity.